Hey guys, welcome back to the tennis vlog for another preview and predictions video. It's semi-finals time in New York. The US Open does the smart thing and splits up which days the men and women play on at this point in the event. So the women's semi-finals happen first. That's going on tonight, and then tomorrow night will be the two men's semis. So in this video, I'm going to preview and predict both women's matches first and then the two men's matches. So if you're not watching live and tuning in at a later date, I'm going to put the timestamp in the description where you can go to watch the men's only preview and predictions if you come that late on. And yeah, let's get going. Let's just jump right into it because I want to keep this to about half an hour. And obviously there's lots to say. Did quite in-depth analysis in terms of the paths of each player so far in the quarterfinals preview and predictions video. So if you are that interested, you can go and look at that analysis there. I'm going to pay most attention to the quarterfinal matches that each player has just come through. So let's start with what will be the first women's semi, which is between Serena Williams, the number 8 seed, but several times a champion here, and Elina Svitolina, who's seeded higher at number 5. Svitolina actually the highest seed left in the draw, but not exactly the favorite for the title win. Let's start with Svitolina, who hadn't dropped a set before her quarterfinal match and still hasn't dropped a set, which is pretty impressive considering she has beaten seeded players. Her run started against Whitney Osigwe of the United States. Then she went from an inexperienced teenager to a very experienced American in Venus Williams, twice a champion here. 6-1, 7-5 in her first round, 6-4, 6-4 over Venus. Diana Ostremska, her countrywoman, posed a threat in the third round, but she swatted her aside 6-2, 6-love. Madison Keys, another American, a finalist here before. Svitolina won 7-5, 6-4 over her in the fourth round. And then she came up against Johanna Konta, who hadn't made the quarters here before, but made the fourth round here in 2015 in what was her breakout run. That match promised to be really close, and honestly, it could have been really close. It was 6-4, 6-4 in the end to Svitolina over Konta, who was the number 16 seed. And Konta, I thought, started off looking the more promising. She's a little bit more aggressive than Svitolina. Svitolina has real counterpunching tendencies, and it was Konta stepping up to rip with the forehand, moving in, and she was finding her marks, and Svitolina looked like she might be in a bit of trouble, but Svitolina's really gritty, and she's been ever so focused since that match against Venus here. She's looked really tough, really determined, and she was covering that baseline impeccably, getting her shots back with good depth. And Konta just didn't have the consistency to match, particularly not in the big moments, because this one could have gone further. It could have gone to 3 sets, but it was Svitolina that was ever present in those moments that counted. Back end of both sets, she was on top, defended when she had the opportunities. So 6-4, 6-4 for Svitolina, and really, she's come past 3 seeded players and not had much trouble at all. She's come past 2 big hitting, powerful Americans in Venus and Madison Keys. And Konta really is a player that's been one of the most consistent at the majors this year. She's really developed different aspects of her game and has several game plans now, but Svitolina able to handle her nicely. So that makes it quite interesting heading into a clash with Serena Williams, who obviously is going to be the favorite, even though Serena has dropped a set here. She's dropped 1, which was in the second round against Katie McNally after she stormed past Maria Sharapova 6-1, 6-1 in crushing fashion. McNally mixes it up a bit more. Serena came through that one 5-7, 6-3, 6-1. Karolina Muchova was her third round victim, 6-3, 6-2. And Petra Martic, another tricky, versatile player, was her victim in the fourth round, 6-3, 6-4. So 3 very crafty players in a row there. But Wang Qiang was almost a step back to Sharapova in the first round, someone that likes to play powerfully from the baseline. Serena hadn't played Wang before, and she quickly found that it was a good matchup for her. She ate up that pace. It was slick, it was quick, and Serena was slicker and quicker. That's as much as there is to say about it. Serena's power in that quarterfinal match was on another level, and that was it had a lot to do with the style of player she was up against. Wang is the 18th seed, but it was a very good matchup for Serena. So I'm not taking this as a sign that she's going to storm through her next match, because Svitolina has a very different game style. But it took me straight back to 2013. In 2013, Serena was dominant. She was ripping winners off returns regularly. She was going for it from the offset. And she just wasn't hanging around in this quarterfinal match. And I got real 2013 vibes from her, because she was treating it like it was a practice match. She was going for everything, forehand and backhand, moving in, ultra aggressive, 6-1, 6-love. And even though she's going into a matchup with a player who's more experienced, who's more of a counterpuncher, that's got to be confidence boosting. What Serena needs to do is not get too carried away and just, she's used to doing this because she's been doing this for years. That's why she's won 23 slams. But she needs to stay so focused now, because she did look in fine thumping form in her semi-final Wimbledon victory over Barbara Strycova. And we all know what happened with Simona Halep in that final. Halep, a counterpuncher like Svitolina, took her to pieces, just made her play extended rallies, found her marks. And Svitolina is not a player that I would have had down to win a slam in the past 12 months, past 24 months. Her progress, Svitolina, has been, it was slow initially, but it's been very steady. She's been getting up there bit by bit, getting her ranking up, then winning the bigger titles, but she's not won a slam. I think that's for good reason. There are elements of her game where she'll get a certain way into the tournament and someone like Serena, probably a big power player, will take her down. She lost to Halep at Wimbledon. That was pretty straightforward in the semis for Halep, and she went down quite quickly because Halep was finding all her marks. So this one is going to be potentially really quite interesting. I know who I think's going to win. If you watched my preview video for the whole tournament, you'll know that I said this one's on Serena's racket, hands down, no question. I stand by that. I am curious now about Serena because it's the latter stage of a major. This is where she's been struggling ever since coming back. Her game has been there, her intensity has been there, her desire has been there. It's taken her away from the big stages. But the mentality that was always there in the final round of slams has not always been there, has rarely been there actually at the back end of majors since coming back. So semi-finals and final, this is where that really gets tested. And I'm not looking at putting her straight into the final without question, because in 2015 at the US Open, when Serena was going for that legendary calendar slam, everything looked, the stars seemed to have aligned for her to win that event. Simona Halep was her biggest competition. Halep had only beaten her once at that point. Serena dominated the head-to-head. The other potential opponents for Serena were Flavia Pennetta, who no one thought she was going to win that slam and was on the other half of the draw, and Roberta Vinci, who she'd straightforwardly crushed in all their previous meetings. Serena got shocked by Vinci, just with the extreme mental pressure of the occasion. And here we have another situation where, while there are three very talented players besides Serena left in the draw, hands down, she's the head and shoulders up as the player that should win. So it's going to be a mental battle for Serena. Svitolina, while being seeded higher, can't generate the kind of firepower that Serena can. She can't match her with the serve. What she can do is make Serena scramble. And we've said it time and time again, if a player's going to beat Serena, she's got to make a move. Serena, if she's in position, will crush Svitolina. Let's look at the head-to-head. Svitolina actually won their most recent meeting. I know that without looking. Let's hope I'm actually correct on that. She did. So they haven't played since 2016. It's been a little while. And Svitolina was a surprise winner over Serena at the Olympics, which would have been a hard loss for Serena because she'd won the gold medal in singles in at least the two previous Olympics, maybe one before as well. So 6-4, 6-3, that was for Svitolina. But prior to that, Serena hadn't had too many problems with her. Beat her 6-1, 6-1 at the 2016 French Open, 6-4, 6-3 in Cincinnati in 2015, Australian Open in 2015 as well. Their only other Grand Slam meeting, Serena was the winner 4-6, 6-2, 6-love. So even though she dropped that first set, she came back with a vengeance. And then 6-2, 6-1 way back in 2012. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins the first set. I think in this one, if Svitolina is going to have a real shot of victory, maybe she needs to win the first set. But ultimately, this is coming down to Serena's mentality. If Serena brings the first serve, closes in with minimal unforced errors, I mean, she should have this in the bag. I've always said that power beats counterpunching when power is on song. I stand by that. So I think Serena wins this, or should win this anyway. I'm not willing to bet against her, even though Svitolina has looked tough. I'm tempted to say Serena in straight sets, and I think after the Wang victory, I think she has had a bit of trouble recently, Serena, transitioning from game style to game style, because obviously she thumped Sharapova in round 1 and then dropped a set to McNally in round 2. But I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt here. I think, oh, yeah, okay, Serena in straight sets. I might regret that one, but Serena in straights. One down. A little longer on that one than I hoped, but let's speed on for the second women's semi-final between two players that moved through yesterday. That would be Wednesday, if you're not watching this live. Belinda Bencic versus Bianca Andreescu. Bencic, the number 13 seed. Andreescu, the number 15 seed. If anyone knows the tennis, this is probably the matchup they were hoping for, because these two similarities to be drawn, but differences, stark differences to be drawn as well. And this one has the makings of a real close contest. I think of all the semis, this is probably the most 50-50. I'd say it's potentially more 50-50 than the Svitolina Konta match from the quarterfinals, which I was really torn on. So I'm looking forward to this one. Let's start with Bencic, who is the number 13 seed and has worked her way back up after poor form and injuries saw her fall down out of the top 10. Bencic was the original prodigy of the 1997 group of players. Obviously, Osaka has come through since then, but it was Bencic that was rising up at the ages of 16 and 17, entered the top 10 aged 18, won a premiere, beating 6 straight Grand Slam finalists at that age. And she's had her problems since then, but had a really strong start to the year. Fell away a bit, had a poor French Open showing, but has come back admirably. And she's moved through this draw pretty comprehensively with some tough opposition as well. It's thanks to her that the top seed, Naomi Osaka, is out. Mandy Minella 6-3, 6-2 in round 1. Alizé Cornet, the feisty French woman, went down in 3 sets to her in round 2, 6-4, 1-6, 6-2. Cornet's been ranked as high as world number 11 off the top of my head, I believe. Third round walkover, maybe helped Bencic a bit, gave her a bit of extra energy, because Annette Kontaveit, who was the number 21 seed, pulled out. But real confidence and power on display from Bencic to come past Naomi Osaka, who she also beat in Indian Wells, where Osaka was also defending the title, as she was here. 7-5, 6-4. And Bencic, I have to say, in her last couple of matches has shown a real head for the big moments, which should serve her well for the rest of this competition and for the rest of her career, really, because that's a monumental thing to have in your possession. Donna Vekic was probably a tougher opponent for Bencic than Osaka. Vekic had won the most recent meeting, and even though Bencic had been prepped well for that one by Osaka's big serve and power, Vekic has become such a fierce competitor and was keeping Bencic in some grueling rallies in that quarterfinal. Vekic actually served for the opening set, but after Bencic had squeaked that one out, she did have the upper hand in the second to come through 7-6, 6-3. And the thing about Bencic is she's so instinctive in the way that she plays and has a lot of options. She isn't going to be put into either the category of power player or counterpuncher. She can do both if she really needs to. She has very fluid shots off both wings, but particularly the backhand is very solid and very lethal at times, and that's not something that you can say about every woman on the WTA. Andreescu, when she plays her, is not going to find a weakness off that wing unless Bencic is having a bad day. She can come forward, but most importantly, when she's been put on the back foot, she can use timing to work her way through, and fired some great passing shots, particularly against Osaka. And with Bencic mainly playing at the baseline, it was confidence boosting for Bencic that she could get the better of some of the rallies in the biggest moments. Moving on quickly then to Andreescu, who is one of the women of the moment. I'm seriously impressed by this girl. Only 19 still, but boy, could she win the slam. And it's been over a decade since we last saw a teenage Grand Slam champ. So Katie Volinets was her victim in the first round, 6-2, 6-4. Bit of a more notable name in Kirsten Flipkens and her backhand slice in the second round, 6-3, 7-5 for Andreescu there. 6-4, 6-4 in the third round over Caroline Wozniacki, former finalist here and the number 19 seed, more of a counterpuncher. Total opposite in Taylor Townsend in round 4, ranked outside the top 100, but she had been super proactive and aggressive during this tournament, coming to the net at every available opportunity. And that would have tested Andreescu in terms of taking some time away from her and seeing how she coped with that. She did cope with that. 6-1, 4-6, 6-2, and then another 3-set victory. This girl does not shy away from 3-set matches. She won her last 2, maybe even 3 Indian Wells matches in 3 sets against high caliber opposition. And for me, when she lost that first set in her quarterfinal match to number 25 seed Elise Mertens, I was pretty sure she was coming back from that because she just does not flinch in these situations. She's quite dramatic, even when she looks negative. It's generally not really what's happening inside. 3-6, 6-2, 6-3 for Andreescu in that quarterfinal match. She's taken out 2 seeded players there, a player in Townsend who was also competing like she was seeded. And what's quite actually confidence boosting, I would say, for Andreescu, if she wants to take it in this way, is that I don't think she's reached her best ability so far this tournament. I think some of the stuff that she played, particularly at the back end of Indian Wells, was more clinical and higher quality than what she's even produced here, and yet she's only dropped 2 sets. In the quarterfinal against Mertens, she was actually lacking her first serve in some big moments and really struggling to get that delivery in, but she got her second serve in instead and ripped the ball behind that as if it was a first serve. She didn't shy away from her game plan. She was moving in whenever possible, nailed some lobs, passing shots, slices that just show her versatility. The drop shot stands out for Andreescu. She didn't use it as much against Mertens, but she has all these options and she's going places because this is the style of game that's coming back into authority in the game. Ashley Barty is the key example. And who knows, maybe Andreescu might have a tool or two more than Barty. She's really got it going on. So at the end of the day, her first serve percentage was 62%, but it did drop right down at times. She had 16 breakpoint opportunities, only converted 4, but it's all about the big moments. And Andreescu did rise when it mattered. And that's why it's interesting against Bencic, because here you have 2 younger players. I mean, Andreescu's quite a bit younger now. Bencic is 22. But both of them have been competing like crazy here. And both of them, I think, would feel they're ready for this moment. Bencic has reached the quarters here before, but this is her first Grand Slam semi. Injury might have had a big say in that, but that's the case. And then Andreescu's just riding this wave of form, hasn't lost a completed match since the beginning of March. And yes, she has had spells of being out injured, but she's still played, I think, almost 10 tournaments. Maybe she's played 10 tournaments or more this season. So to be playing at the height of the WTA level, having competed mainly at the ITF level last year, and to be winning and winning and winning the way she is very impressive. Like I say, hasn't reached her peak form here at the US Open, so Bencic is going to force a bit more out of her. She'll need to bring a higher level to come through this one, but all the signs say this one should be interesting. They've never faced off before, so not at WTA level anyway, so they'll know about each other's games. I'm sure they'll have seen each other around for a long time, but I was going to say it will be interesting to see who starts the quickest, but I almost don't think it matters who wins the first set in this one because both of them are such fighters. I think that if Andreescu were to go down a set, though, she would find it easier to come back from than Bencic because Bencic has more trouble, I think, channeling her frustration into her game than Andreescu, who can really kind of take negative situations and find something within her to pull through, almost this kind of champion's mentality. So, I've got to make a prediction here. If you did watch my preview video for this tournament, you'll notice that I pretty much said Serena is on Serena's racket, and I drew out the name of anyone that, I mean, there are many women who could have won this event. I talked a bit about Andreescu and how I remember there was this kind of preview that someone had done and they hadn't mentioned her name. From the moment I saw she was in the opposite half of the draw to Serena, I knew she was going deep if she got past the first couple of rounds, and she did that pretty comprehensively. So I think my gut instinct here is probably Andreescu as well. It's kind of hard to say because in my head I know there are so many 50-50 elements of this, but for the sake of time I'm going to cut to the chase and say even though Bencic has been playing well, competing well, I think that Andreescu has the potential to frustrate, and I think I'm going to pick Andreescu to come through this one in 3 sets. So Bianca Andreescu to reach her maiden Grand Slam final in 3 sets. Oh, did I just mess that up? No, I didn't. I'm fine. Okay, moving on to the men's matches. And only one member of the big 3 features, as I'm sure you're aware if you've been following the tournament. So this could get interesting. I'm going to start with the match that doesn't feature a member of the big 3, and that is number 5 seed Daniil Medvedev's clash with the unseeded Grigor Dimitrov, which might have felt like a weird thing to be saying a couple of years ago, or even 3-4 years ago, but this is where we are. Dimitrov, when he was, I don't know, go back to 2012, 2013, everyone thought Dimitrov was going to be world number 1 within the next few years. He's got quite a lethal game when he's on, but he's proven to be so streaky, so unpredictable, and he is down ranked outside the top 70 at the moment. He's had real struggles over the past year and split with his coach, Danny Valverdus, shortly before this tournament. Sometimes that gives players just a bit more freedom, a new lease of life, the mental change that brings and the changing of the situation, and that surely seems to be the case for Dimitrov. Might as well start with him now I've started talking about him. He's played 1 less match than Medvedev because he got a walkover in the second round. So he beat Andrea Seppi, seasoned Italian, 6-1, 6-7, 6-4, 6-3 in the first round. And then he would have had a really promising second round matchup with number 12 seed Borna Coric. And I remember saying I thought this one might have taken him out because he hadn't really got time to get going. He has been streaky, played a great match against Stan Wawrinka at the French Open. They went toe-to-toe, but Wawrinka edged all the big moments. But yeah, Coric pulled out of that one, so Dimitrov got through to the third round where he went in straights, the first 2 sets being quite close. Alex de Minaur, his opponent in the 4th round, was in good form, and when he won that one in straight sets, that's when you knew it was time to take Dimitrov seriously because de Minaur's so speedy, so much he can do on the court, and Dimitrov won 7-5, 6-3, 6-4. And then he did almost the unthinkable. It's weird to say that because Dimitrov is the kind of player, he's won the ATP finals, he's got big wins, he should be expected to win this kind of match, but it was a bit of a surprise. 3-6, 6-4, 3-6, 6-4, 6-2 over the number 3 seed, who was suddenly in the spotlight after Djokovic retired from his match against Wawrinka. Now, I only watched the first set of this one live because at the back end of a slam like the US Open with the time zones so terrible, I need to sleep sometimes. When I woke up and I saw that Dimitrov had won in 5, my first reaction, subconsciously, just woken up, my first thought was Federer must have been injured. Which is the strangest thought to have because I don't write these unseeded guys off against the elite players. There is a bigger mental gap than physical gap between the best players in the game and those 50, 100 ranking spots down. So I don't rule anyone out. I had concerns about Federer and how he would mentally handle Djokovic being out and suddenly it being open for him to make it through to the final. I say open, he had real tough competitors left in his half, but he was the highest seeds and the most accomplished by a long way. And yeah, it's just interesting that that was my first thought, because maybe unknowingly I'd almost kind of given Dimitrov less of a chance in my head, because at the end of the day, and I mean no disrespect to Dimitrov by this at all, but he is a less accomplished, less well-rounded version of Federer himself. And Federer knows his own game inside out, so surely this is a match that he should be winning pretty comprehensively against a player who's known to be streaky and not be able to sustain form. And particularly after I'd watched that first set, because Federer was nailing the first serve, he was hitting consistently with good depth, particularly off the backhand, and Dimitrov didn't have answers for that. He wasn't playing particularly badly, he just didn't know how to respond to what Federer was throwing at him. And yes, players aren't always able to sustain that form. Federer, but I forgot to even mention, I presume people know, Federer was a bit injured. He had a medical timeout after the fourth set and then didn't really have much left to give in the fifth. But earlier in the match, you know, they were going toe-to-toe and Dimitrov did still manage to win that second set. What I don't want to say is that Dimitrov purely won this match due to injury, because that would be false info. There are many players who could have been up against a hampered Federer and wouldn't have won the match, because they would have lacked the belief, they would have lacked the quality when it mattered. And what Dimitrov did was he stayed there, he saw his opportunity and he seized it, which is not something that Dimitrov's always done, so full credit to him. And yeah, Federer had a stiff upper back and a stiff neck. You can't underestimate how difficult it is to play a high-level pro tennis match in that condition, because there's so much rotation and moving involved that even just tightness can cause so much damage. So credit to Dimitrov for coming through. I just thought it would be interesting to mention that that was my instinctive reaction to that match. I think it was quite a surprise to a lot of people that Dimitrov came past Federer. It probably wouldn't have been so surprising if it was Nadal that Dimitrov had beaten, Nadal who was pushed close before, but he was 7-love down on the head-to-head against Federer, and everyone can acknowledge that he plays a very similar game style to Federer, just not to quite the high standards that Federer produces. So a really interesting result there, and I have to say full credit to Dimitrov for spying his moment and seizing the opportunity. But quickly moving on to Daniil Medvedev, who has applause for Medvedev, because man, he's had a great run of form, and for him, with his lack of experience at majors, he's still only 23, to come and keep producing across best of 5-set matches is not something I entirely expected. So applause to Medvedev. I mean, seriously, that's really, really good stuff. 6-4, 6-1, 6-2 in the first round, then cramped a bit against Hugo Dellien in the second round, coming through 6-3, 7-5, 5-7, 6-3. The drama started with the interactions with the crowd and the booing and that in the third round against Feliciano Lopez, a match that Medvedev won 7-6, 4-6, 7-6, 6-4. Notice there again, with a head for the big moments coming through when it mattered. And honestly, I think channeling the energy from the crowd, I don't think he was completely trolling them after the matches when he thanked them for the atmosphere. I do think that, you know, with the run he's been on, he won. Now, did he win Cincinnati or did he win Canada? You can tell me in the comments, but it was the second one, I think. Anyway, he won one and made the final of the other, and then before that he'd either won a title or made another final. His run's been so good, I've forgotten what he's done, and I missed quite a bit of that chunk of the season anyway with other work. But Cincinnati, thank you. He won Cincinnati. And yeah, it's been quite a run of form for him. And to, at some point, particularly over best of 5 sets, at the back end of the season, that can be when you start to tire. But he's taken this energy from the crowd, and I think it's almost kept him going. Won in 4 sets in the fourth round again, 3-6, 6-3, 6-2, 7-6. And then the match against Stan Wawrinka in the quarters, which was highly anticipated. Wawrinka having taken out Djokovic. Obviously, Djokovic pulled out down 2 sets and a break. But Wawrinka had stepped up and unleashed with the backhand in old Wawrinka fashion and looked in a good place. coming into the quarterfinal, and I think I got 6 of 8 quarterfinal winner predictions correct. This was one of the ones I got wrong. I actually gave, I mean, so I was regretting it as I said it, but I gave Wawrinka the edge in that one. I can't remember how many sets I said. I think Wawrinka was a bit ill during that match, but he was very hot and cold. I mean, Wawrinka is hot and cold. He's streaky. That's the way he is. But yeah, it was a strange match. It kind of fluctuated, but the thing that was consistent for Medvedev was his serve was a bomb when it needed to be, and he's just steady Medvedev. That's what he does. He's just so consistent in the longer rallies. 7-6, 6-3, 3-6, 6-1 was the scoreline for Medvedev. Hit 11 aces, 12 double faults. I didn't realize it had been that many, but it was a strange match, really. 50% break point conversion rate, 36 unforced errors, 36 winners. Both Wawrinka and Medvedev hit the same number of winners to unforced errors, but I mean, as close as some of the stats are, it's about the big moments, and Medvedev came through when it mattered. Now, looking ahead to we've already hit half an hour, so we're going to go a bit early over what I anticipated or wanted, so apologies. But the head-to-head is quite short because they've only met twice, both in 2017, which is the year that Dimitrov won the ATP finals fairly unexpectedly. Dimitrov won their first meeting on the grass courts of Queen's Club in London. He won that 6-3, 3-6, 6-3. And Medvedev won their meeting on the American hard courts of Washington, D.C., 6-4, 6-2. It's interesting to draw things from that because for a number of reasons, this is another pretty 50-50 matchup. Dimitrov has been in a Grand Slam semi before, but not since 2016, I don't think, when he did it at Wimbledon. And Medvedev's never been here before, new situation for him, but he's had the great form this year that Dimitrov has been lacking, hence his seeding here, and hence Dimitrov's non-seeding here. Oh, 2017. Okay, yeah, 2017 as well. So, yeah, it's been a while for Dimitrov, and it's been a while of wandering form for him, and technically, he should be favoured to come through here based on his previous experience and wins over big players, and he's been in more of this kind of moment than Medvedev. But I did not give Medvedev enough of a chance in the last round. I don't think I should be writing him off purely on the basis that he's got to get tired at some point after all the winning he's been doing. I don't think that's fair. Dimitrov is more streaky than Medvedev. Medvedev's on his way. He's climbing at the moment. And going back again to my preview video for the event, you will remember that I said if one of the big three doesn't win, I find it easier to see a more experienced player, such as the Marin Cilic's, Dominic Thiem's, Kei Nishikori's of this world coming through. Now, Dimitrov would fit into that category because time has flown. He's at the back end of his 20s now. But Medvedev isn't quite a next-gen player. He's 23. All of the big three were doing well, consistently well, going deep at that age. He's not at a point where he's still growing physically. He's not a teenager anymore, let's put it that way. So he is more developed. He's showing he can handle more matches. And I'm going to give Medvedev the benefit of the doubt here. And I'm going to... Oh, sorry, I'm still not fully better, by the way. I never am during a slam. I'm going to say Medvedev to win. And I think I'll say in 4 sets, just to give it a bit of leeway. But it's so difficult to back up those big wins. And Dimitrov, he noticed himself that Federer wasn't fully himself. It feels wrong to say it because he earned that win, but he did have a little bit of help across the line. And I think that Medvedev is more likely to carry on the streak of wins, I think. So Medvedev in 4. And moving on to the last semi-final, which is between the number 2 seed, Rafael Nadal, and the number 24 seed, Matteo Berrettini. I'd call him the breakout star of the tournament, but this is a guy that's been making a steady rankings climb this year. Started the year outside the top 50, will surely be top 20 after this event finishes. I don't have an official stat on that, but I mean, he's gone all the way to the semis, having little Grand Slam experience beforehand, so got to be in the top 20. Let's start with Berrettini then, who had a fantastic win in the last round, but we'll come to that shortly. Richard Gasquet was a big first win for him, because even though Gasquet's not in great form anymore and not at the top 10 heights he once was, he's still got one of the best backhands in the game when he's on, and can serve really well. Berrettini won that one 6-4, 6-3, 2-6, 6-2. Another four-set win over Jordan Thompson, and another over Alexei Popyrin, two Australians in rounds 2 and 3. 7-5, 7-6, 4-6, 6-1, and 6-4, 6-4, 6-7, 7-6. Popyrin, I said in the last video, great talent, and Berrettini edging the big moments there. Beat Andrei Rublev in the 4th round. Rublev, who took out Federer recently, who took out Nick Kyrgios, who was a real contender in this section of the draw, in the 3rd round. I think Rublev was a bit tired. He seemed a bit fatigued. 6-1, 6-4, 7-6 for Berrettini. And then the dramatic match against Gael Monfils. Boy, was that one engaging. Monfils, the number 13 seed. I was too proud of myself on this one for getting the prediction right, because I took a risk going with Berrettini. And it's more of the same, right? Monfils blows hot and cold. He has all the talent to win a slam, but many men on tour have talent, and not all of them have consistency, and eventually that's what it comes down to. So Berrettini won 3-6, 6-3, 6-2, 3-6, 7-6. Could have been more straightforward than that. And Amazon Prime went down during this match. I couldn't get access to this stream at one point. I missed the best part of the second 2 sets. Monfils started out strong, serving big, holding Berrettini back. Berrettini was getting quite frustrated. And then he bounced back, which did not surprise me because of the tendencies of Monfils and because of the ability of Berrettini. He did a really great serving display against Rublev, and his forehand stands out. He really cracks down on that shot with a lot of topspin and great placement as well. And there's quite a bit of... He didn't utilize as much variety as I thought he could have done against Monfils, but he's got the backhand slice to keep him in the rallies. He's good at dropping... used this terminology before, the drop volley. He's good at using that shot. The thing with Berrettini in this match was that he did need a helping hand to get across the line. He was very, very nervous, understandably, back end of the match. He served for it, double faulted on his first match point, got broken back, and it looked like he'd almost hung himself there, because Monfils stormed back to life when he saw an opportunity, was ripping everything again, flat power. And to be fair, Berrettini did some really great reactive tennis in those moments, because the power that Monfils was coming out with sometimes, particularly on the serve, he did well to get the balls back with as much depth as he did. I think it's very positive for him that he had the cleanest start to the tiebreak, because so many chances had come and gone for him at that point that I thought he was going to find the tiebreak very difficult to handle mentally. But actually, even though it got close at the back end, he did manage to squeeze through. And I say full credit to him, because he's one of those players that this year has been having a good run, but it's been nothing stand out. And therefore, all the talk has been about Alexander Zverev, 22, only a year younger than this guy. Is he going to break through? Is he going to do this, going to do that? And so many players have got the spotlight and the stories, and Berrettini has just been quietly working away. And to see him get this Grand Slam semi-final, which is a massive thing to be able to say you can do in the Big Three era, that's huge for him. So full credit to him. Nadal. Oh, something I forgot to say, by the way, against, just doubling back, Dimitrov Medvedev, or one of the reasons I'm favouring Medvedev. Dimitrov's break point conversion rate against Federer was not good at all, and Medvedev has a really mean serve. Like, he can get that slick and fast down the tee, and I just feel that if Dimitrov couldn't make those moves against Federer, he'll probably struggle against Medvedev as well. I'm just throwing that in there because it was something I wanted to say, but I kind of get carried away and I forgot. Anyway, that one's behind us. Going on to Nadal. Yeah, so Nadal's dropped the one set this tournament. I mean, he also has had a walkover against Thanasi Kokkinakis round 2 he would have played, and they got a walkover there. This is what I've been saying about the US Open. It is the last slam of the year. People are tired. People are injured more often. And things like this are going to happen. It's what makes it the more unpredictable slam. But 6-3, 6-2, 6-2 over the gritty, fighting John Millman in round 1. Walkover round 2. Hyun Chung was his victim in the third round, 6-3, 6-4, 6-2. And then Marin Cilic in the fourth round, 6-3, 3-6, 6-1, 6-2. So rebounding strongly there after dropping the second set. But we talked a bit about that in the last video. So moving on to his quarterfinal against Diego Schwartzman, a tougher match than it looks on paper. 6-4, 7-5, 6-2. You think, oh great, Nadal wins another straight sets match. Actually, this one was closer than it looked. Nadal led 5-1, I believe, in the second set before Schwartzman broke him back not once but twice. And then Nadal was forced to break to actually take the set. He was up in the first set as well, 4-love, before Schwartzman came back. And this is something you might have anticipated, because here are two players that know each other and each other's games really well. Schwartzman has really stepped it up on the faster surfaces this year. He's kind of been known for his ability on clay, but this year, you know, he's not let anything that might inhibit him pull him back. His timing's been very good, taking the ball early and just being so gritty and transferring that game style that's so effective on a dirt court over to a faster surface and showing that it works there as well. And yeah, Schwartzman had a good run at Wimbledon, so not surprised to see him pushing Nadal a bit, but once again, for all his dropped serves, all 4 of them, and, well, he was broken 4 times, to make that clearer. Nadal coming through in straights, 6-4, 7-5, 6-2. And I think Nadal said that he's taking a lot of confidence from the Cilic and Schwartzman wins, because Nadal is someone who respects all his opponents, who doesn't think, oh, they're not a member of the big 3, therefore I'm not scared of them and I'm not taking them very seriously. Nadal treats every opponent as someone that could take him out. It's so important when it comes to the mentality. It's so important when it comes to game plans and how he's working through each match. And people will kind of brush the run Nadal's had to the semis off. If Nadal wins this title, which is expected by many, people will say, oh, but he had the easiest draw. And yeah, you know, there have been much tougher draws to a Grand Slam title, but Cilic and Schwartzman brought a good level against Nadal. Cilic with the big backhand and the big serves, Schwartzman with his all-court ability and the way he was able to craft Nadal around, the way he was able to hang with Nadal when Nadal was trying to be aggressive and make him play extra balls, pass him, drag him. It was a good display from Schwartzman and something that he can be proud of, I think. But confidence boost for Nadal that he still came through in straights, and it has him looking very strong against Berrettini. And I'm not writing anyone off, not doing that at all. But Berrettini had severe nerves in that quarterfinal, and maybe he got them out of his system. But this is huge. A first semi-final for Nadal. Not for Nadal. Millionth semi-final for Nadal. First semi-final for Berrettini. And I don't think it's a case of just getting nerves out of your system and moving on. He's going to be nervous here again. What he needs to do is go out with the knowledge that he is the complete underdog here, that it would be a huge shock if he beat Nadal. He needs to swing, go for it. But Berrettini hits his forehands with quite a bit of topspin, similar to Schwartzman. He's got his big serve and he can use the drop volley, but I don't see much in his game that can be more damaging than what Schwartzman was to Nadal. So if Nadal's not 100%, Berrettini will have chances, but if Nadal's getting that first serve in, and if he's confident when serving out the match and serving out sets, which has been a consistent problem actually for Nadal over the years, I've noticed it more in recent times, the time he's most vulnerable is that when it comes to serve out a set or serve out a match, and Schwartzman exposed that with his great returning skills. Berrettini can take confidence from how well he returned against Monfils, but, you know, Nadal is the strong favourite to win this one. I'm not going to back against him, and I'm going to say Nadal to win this one. I want to give Berrettini a bit more of a chance, but I mean, it was so recently. He'll have had a day to recover, but it was a long, grueling match against Monfils, and who knows if against someone that is physical as Nadal, that might take its toll. So I'm going to say Nadal to win, and Nadal to win in straight sets, but they could be close sets, and whatever happens to Berrettini, whether he gets a shock here or whether he goes out straightforwardly, full credit and full applause to him, and he's a name we'll be seeing much more of in future. So, done! We've wrapped up. Thank you for watching if you've watched live, if you've come back later on. Always great to be able to hear your opinions as well. So whether you're here now or whether you're leaving a comment afterwards, leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the predictions. Whether you think I'm terribly wrong and terribly off, or whether you'd be more in agreement. Let me know who you see winning the tournament overall. I have a few thoughts on that one, and I have done for a few rounds, but you can't deny that even though that's missing some of the usual names, really interesting semi-finals here. I think apart from maybe the Nadal match, some of them could really quite tough to call. So yeah, it should be good. It should be a good semi-final lineup and some good semi-final matches, and I'll be seeing you guys again next when it comes to previewing the finals. I think due to the time zones, I'll probably do an individual preview video for... No, I can't actually because of the days. So I'll probably do... Yeah, okay, so I'll do one video previewing both finals. That's the way to do it. I'm deciding this on the spot. This is what I am, last minute kind of person. And yeah, whether it's live or whether it's pre-recorded and edited, probably live. I think that's probably the way to work it. I will be back to have one last stab at this before the US Open ends. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the support of the channel. Subscribe if you haven't so you know when I'm going to be here. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you after the semi-finals.